Hey everyone, it is tea time with the diva. Grab your tea, grab your coffee, because we're going to get into it. This tea time is dedicated to Diddy and I'm going to say Keefe D. We're going to say Keefe D, Dwayne Davis. Now, Dwayne Davis is currently behind bars being accused of the unaliving of Tupac Shakur. But Dwayne Keefe D. Davis is trying to do and say anything to get himself out of this web that he tangled with his own hands. So now he wants to claim one, he was never at the scene of the crime that unfaithful night that Tupac lost his life. He's also saying too that Diddy was highly involved because Diddy hired somebody to unalive Tupac and Suge Knight and was willing to pay allegedly $1 million to do so. At one time, Keefe D was said to be working with, prosecutors, working with the feds. He was an informant. And there's tape audio of him saying that, listen, Sean Combs, Puffy, back during the time where Tupac was unalive, offered $1 million to take him out, to take out Tupac and Suge Knight. And he also said that after Tupac was unalive, Diddy called him and just said to him, was that us? Okay. And Keefe D claimed he said yes and tried to collect the $1 million that was promised. And he also alleges that Diddy gave the $1 million to the person that allegedly was coordinating this whole unaliving or this whole hit, right? So there is audio of him talking to prosecutors. When I say him, Keefe D talking to prosecutors about, Diddy's involvement, Sean Combs. The only thing is inaudible, okay? You can hear the name Puffy, you can hear something about $1 million, but Keefe D has a very sometimes when he talks, you can't understand him. And this audio is not that audible. But I'm gonna play it for y'all, and then we're gonna get into this story. So hold on, let me just play this here. When I skip the commercials and cue it up, sometimes it backs up, but we'll hear.
Here today to announce the arrest of 60-year-old Dwayne Keith Davis, aka Keefe D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur.
Hey, Keith, Metro Police, come over here. Hey, Metro Police, come over here, all right? Thanks, buddy. Come on over here. Appreciate your cooperation, okay? I'll stand right here in front of the car. Yes, sir. Go and put it down. I know. Hang on. Put that down. All right.
Well, I don't know if that is a confession. That's a legal conclusion. And like I said before, I'm not even in on the case yet. I haven't reviewed anything, but just based on the reports, I believe when I see these statements, which are extrajudicial statements, that there are reasons on why people say things.
Mr. Gibbs, have you been able to retain the services of counsel? Okay, so I'm going to need to appoint an attorney to represent you today. Do you understand that? Do you understand that charge? As to that charge, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty? Sir, you have the right to have a jury trial set within 60 days. Would you like to invoke or waive that right? Okay.
This is a case that I and the committee discuss, and we determined that this was not the kind of case that should proceed with the seeking of the death penalty. But again, Mr. Davis has his right to his day in court, and we look forward to that day in court.
start with page 9, Dwayne Davis, C377407. All right, so June 3rd at 9:30 a.m. We'll do a calendar call of May 28th at 9 a.m.
That's his wife.
No, I don't think I was surprised by that. Obviously, that's the strength of the state's case. It's going back. And currently, we've been productive for the last 15 years. We've been productive with society since then. I would say that he was pleased that she set a bail on this case.
The decision today was to set bail at the amount of $750,000 with what is called a source hearing and high electronic monitoring. I respect the judge in her decision, and I think, as I said, she was very conscientious and thorough in coming to her decision.
So that was when they arrested him. That was like the prosecutor that was talking. His lawyer spoke. And to summarize it, they put a $750,000 bond for him to get out. He did come up with the money, but the court has the right, and they did question where did this money come from, and they did not let him out. Now, later on, I will play the audio. I told you I was going to play it from, but I'll play it later on in this video. Diddy do it. Tupac Shakur worked undercover for cops trying to implicate Diddy in Gangsta Pal and rapper's murder, Bombshell Doc said. Diddy called suspect Keefe D after Tupac's shooting, asking, "Is that us?" The court papers allege, right? And Keefe D said he told Diddy, yes, it was. The man charged with Tupac's unaliving was a confidential police informant who tried to set up an undercover drug deal in a bid to implicate hip-hop mogul Diddy in the rapper's murder, damning court filings allege. Accused murderer Keefe D worked undercover with LAPD detectives from a task force initially to set up to investigate the murder of Biggie Smalls after volunteering information about his role in Pac's fatal shooting, according to the bombshell 179-page court file by Las Vegas prosecutors. Diddy is named in the latest court filings from in Tupac murder case, and that's Tupac. Tupac was injured in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas in 1996 and died a few days later. That's Keefe D, the murder suspect. Keefe D worked undercover for Los Angeles cops, new court papers allege. According to the court papers obtained by the U.S. Sun, Keefe became an informant after he was caught trafficking a large amount of drugs by the task force. Keefe denied having any involvement in Biggie's murder, but gave police a recorded account, believing he was immune from prosecution, of how he and his fellow gang members killed Tupac in a drive-by powwowing in Las Vegas in 1996. He alleged in the interview that Diddy, real name Sean Combs, had previously offered him $1 million for Tupac's murder, which Diddy, then known as Puffy, later paid to a gangster called Eric Zip Martin. And I'm going to play that audio for you in a little bit. But like I told you, it's kind of inaudible. You can't really hear it. From which has been previously published by the U.S. Sun and can be heard below. Now, in a new twist, prosecutors are claiming that 3 months after the recorded confession on March 9, 2009, Keefe became an active, confidential informant for the task force. In a section titled Additional Information, and this is out of this 179-page document, never considered evidence before by the court, the document goes on to allege that Keefe, accompanied by officers from the task force, flew to New York on June 17, 2009 in a bid to corroborate the conspiracy to commit Tupac's unaliving. It explains that detectives believed they had jurisdiction to investigate a Nevada homicide because defendant Keefe asserted that the conspiracy to commit the murder began in California between defendant Eric Zip Martin and Sean Combs. So they're pretty much, what Keefe D is pretty much saying, that Sean enlisted or hired Eric Zip Martin to unalive Tupac and Suge Knight. Keefe, acting in an undercover capacity, ran into Zip on the street as he approached his workplace, according to prosecutors. Mr. Martin Zip greeted the defendant excitedly, and they had a social conversation, the court papers say. Thereafter, Mr. Martin, his nephew, and defendant got into the nephew's blue Cadillac DTS and drove over to see Mr. Martin's sister. After returning, defendant tried to enlist Mr. Martin in effort to traffic narcotics. Now, this is the audio. I might as well go ahead and play this now. So, explosive audio of Tupac Shakur's subject Keefe D claiming Diddy orchestrated the rapper's assassination for a $1 million, I guess reward money, or if you did it, I'll give you $1 million. So let's listen. Like I said, you got to listen real close. It's hard. You will hear something about $1 million. You will hear Puffy's name.
Yeah, I think it happened before. Before Jay. So you can see Suge getting up on stage, making fun of Puffy. Yeah. Because that was like the thing that started. It was triggering everything. Before anybody got shot.
That was a lot of disrespect. Yeah, that was disrespectful. I know he said it at that room in Anaheim and a couple times at Greenbacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just that he didn't recall.
Shoot. Yeah, when T-Mac told me that Zip got the money, oh, man.
So he tells you seriously, man, I need to get rid of these guys. And he's looking at you in the eyes and like scared.
Yeah. He's scary, bro. Now you would have to conversation with this man, yeah. I mean, we ain't got no pistols. We got no pistols.
Okay, so he says, you tell him we'll do it for $1 million, and he's like, okay, I'll do it for $1 million. He agrees to shake on it or something like that.
Yeah.
What
I
happened?
hit him. He, like, man, we went there quick, you know, it's nothing. So he said,
Who brought up the amount of $1 million?
he did.
Puffy did, yeah. In fact, wasn't you?
No, it wasn't me.
You call anybody, you call Jeff, and the next day, he's like, this one I feel, you got that.
Call me. He said, was that right? Yeah. He called while we were in the
Wait, so Jeff called you and said, is that not
maybe at the Halloween place, I met him at the Halloween place,
you said the Halloween place is here in LA. Yeah, okay. So let's go back to Vegas. So you're in Vegas, you wake up the next morning.
So he pretty much saying, I don't know if you heard Puffy's name. You heard the $1 million. He said Puffy is pretty much evil. So Mr. Martin indicated he was out of the business, but directed him to conduct the drug activities with his nephew. Thereafter, defendant and Mr. Martin socialized in Mr. Martin's restaurant for several hours. Diddy, who has always denied any involvement in Tupac's death, appears to be further implicated in the court papers when prosecutors summarize one of Keefe's other interviews and state, Sean Combs reaches out to defendant, wondering if the Southside Crips were responsible for Shakur's death by asking, is that us? Defendant, beaten with pride, answers yes. Keefe, real name Dwayne Davis, was hoping to be free at the bail hearing next week ahead of his trial for Pac's murder, slated for November. A judge denied his release in June after he was able to secure the $750,000 bond to be free while he awaits trial, citing concerns over the source of the funds, music manager Cash Whack 100 Jones. So Whack 100 Jones allegedly gave Keefe D the money for this $750,000 bond, but the money was given so that Whack would have exclusive rights to all interviews with Keefe D, documentaries, and just everything. And the judge was not having that, and she denied his bond. So this is Diddy pictured with Eric Zip Martin on a New Year's Eve, 1994. And this Eric Martin is allegedly the one that Diddy hired to unalive Tupac and Suge Knight. They're just giving a little snippet here of, the task force and everything. And this is out of this 179-page document. what the motive would be for this, Davis responded that he had heard that Shakur was talking about leaving Death Row Records. In that same interview, defendant acknowledged knowing Zip. Okay, defendant's admission in 2008 related to the murder. Prior to December 18, 2008, defendant was a target of an investigation of a task force created to investigate the murder of Christopher Wallace, aka Biggie. As the target, he was caught trafficking in a large amount of drugs. This is Keefe D was caught. That's how he became the informant. Pursuant to that investigation, task force officers approached the defendant seeking to interview him about his knowledge of the Christopher Wallace murder. Defendant denied any involvement in that murder, however, volunteered his knowledge about the murder of Tupac Shakur. Thereafter, on December 18, 2008, he provided a recorded version of the events similar to his other recordings of the murder, or which was consistent with the known evidence from the early investigation on March 9, 2009. Defendant became an active, confidential informant for the task force. Defendant's efforts to collaborate the conspiracy. On June 17, 2009, defendant and task force officers traveled to New York in an effort to capture incriminating evidence from Eric Zip Martin. That's what that phone call was about. On June 19, 2009, defendant acting as in an undercover capacity approached Mr. Martin's place of business and ran into Martin on the street. Mr. Martin greeted defendant excitedly, and they had a social conversation. Thereafter, Mr. Martin, his nephew, and defendant got into the nephew's blue Cadillac DTS and drove over to see Mr. Martin's sister. After returning, defendant tried to enlist Mr. Martin in an effort to traffic narcotics. Mr. Martin indicated he was out of the business, but directed him to conduct his drug activities with the nephew. Thereafter, defendant and Mr. Martin socialized in Mr. Martin's restaurant for several hours. Okay. Prosecutors are opposing Keefe's release on bail as they release a slew of evidence against the former drug kingpin. Keefe's lawyer, Carl Arnold, had previously claimed his client was not even in Las Vegas on the night Tupac Shakur was shot, September 7th, 1996. So they've been trying to solve, Tupac's unaliving for almost 3 decades. However, the latest filing contains a number of statements Keefe has made both to police and in interviews and books in which he claims he was, and I'm gonna jump down to this piece, he was there during the time. So now Keefe D is trying to claim he was nowhere near the scene when it happened, but although he did tons of interviews and wrote a book saying he was there. Prosecutors have also submitted newly unearthed evidence in the same court filing for which places Keefe in the city on the night of the murder. Investigators said a room at the then Monte Carlo Resort, now Park MGM, was booked under Keefe's wife's name, Paula Clemens. But as she was not a known Southside Crip, the reservation went under the radar. So they're trying to say that during the time they was initially investigating, they did look at everybody who booked a room in the hotel, who was staying at the hotel during that time period, but they never connected Paula to being Keefe D's wife. That's why her name didn't mean anything to them during that time. But they're saying now it means not a lot, because why would his wife be there, but he wasn't there? So, they're kind of debunking his lies. It comes after the U.S. Sun exclusively revealed earlier this week how prosecutors were scouring through any paperwork or surveillance footage from the Monte Carlo Hotel in a bid to secure further evidence against Keefe. I lost my train. Right there. The U.S. Sun has reached out to Keefe's lawyer and to representatives for Diddy requesting comment on the latest court filing. The latest court filings linking Diddy to Tupac's murder came after he was accused of sex trafficking former porn star Andrea English in a lawsuit filed earlier this month. It was the latest in a string of lawsuits accusing the rap mogul of sex trafficking and sexual assault filed in the late 2023 and 2024. All of which Diddy has denied. Back in March, Diddy homes were raided by Homeland Security officials as part of a federal sex trafficking investigation. At the time, Keefe, through his lawyer, Carl Arnold, shot down claims that he had cooperated with federal authorities over the probe, telling the U.S. Sun he has not spoken to any officials. That's because Keefe D doesn't want to be seen as a snitch or an informant, especially in his tender age of the late 60s, okay? A source close to Keefe added he wants it out there that he ain't doing no deals or having nothing to do with them feds in this Diddy thing. So, you know, he said himself in that audio that was hard to hear that Diddy is scary. So yeah, he want to put word out in the street that, listen, I ain't talking to the feds. I'm not trying to, you know, get involved in everything that's going on with Diddy right now. All I'm here to do is say that I had nothing to do with the unaliving of Tupac Shakur. So let's get into this piece. Why it's taking so long for justice in the Tupac Shakur case. By the Sun senior reporter Emma Pari, who has been reporting on the Tupac murder for the past 10 years. Tupac fans have been waiting for justice for the iconic rapper for almost 28 years, which is so sad. Finally, in September 2023, there appeared to be progress with the arrest of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a former Southside Crip gangster from Compton, LA, who had been telling the world for years that he and his fellow gang soldiers were responsible for the hit. I've been reporting on this case for several years, and it's always appeared pretty cut and dry. Keefe has spent the past decade gaining notoriety by boasting about his alleged involvement in the shooting. Now he is finally getting what he deserves. But despite Keefe running his mouth for years, I now believe a guilty verdict in November's trial is far from guaranteed. Keefe describes in great detail in his memoir, Compton Street Legend, that went down the night Pac was shot. Extracts from which the U.S. Sun has published. He claimed that he was offered $1 million by rapper Diddy to handle Tupac and Suge Knight. And when he and his Crip gangsters came across the pair driving near a strip in Las Vegas on September 7, 1996, Keefe alleged he passed the gun to his nephew, Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, who took the shot. Keefe said if Pac had been on his side, I would have blast, which is disgusting. Keefe D is disgusting. Keefe repeated the claims multiple times over the years on YouTube channel documentaries and even in tape confessions to the police when he believed he could not be prosecuted. In one confession to the LAPD, Keefe appeared completely remorseless, telling detectives, "We didn't give a F. The ambulance for Pac was parked right next to us. That S was funny as a MFer." The Sun has been publishing stories about Keefe's self-confessed involvement in the crime since 2018. I sent many links to his confessions to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, asking them why this man had not been arrested yet. They would thank me for the info, but say that they could not comment because the case was still active. From the outside, it looked like no action was taken at all. We spoke to former detectives involved in the case and documentary makers who all felt utterly frustrated at the lack of progress in the case. We even published a plea from former LAPD detective Greg Cady, who had probed the murders, urging Las Vegas cops to arrest Keefe D back in 2020. For years, the case appeared to have been forgotten and ignored, to be left forever unsolved. But finally, in the summer of 2023, we got word from our sources that there had been a huge development in the case. A secret grand jury was due to be held on whether or not Keefe should be indicted. I was dubious at first, but around the same time, a house in Henderson, Nevada, linked to Keefe was raided in July as part of the Tupac investigation. Things were heating up. Later that summer, behind closed doors, jurors listened to hours of testimony from former cops, detectives, and coroners involved in the Tupac case and gangsters and associates of Keefe and Pac back in the day. They were shown graphic photos of Tupac's bullet-ridden body. After days of evidence, they decided there was enough evidence to prosecute Keefe. Once the secret documents were released, I poured over the transcripts. While interesting, many of the witnesses were telling stories they heard secondhand. None of the prosecution witnesses had a clear look at who shot Pac. One witness, Devonta Lee, claimed another gangster called Big Dre took the shot, not Orlando. Maybe things weren't as clear-cut as I thought. Keefe was then arrested on September 30th, 2023 at his home. Body cam footage we obtained from the scene showed Keefe bragging to cops even as he was handcuffed in the back of the police car, telling officers he was involved in the biggest case in Las Vegas history. Following Keefe's multiple appearances in court, he seems to have lost much of that bravado and now cuts a sad, lonely figure. Suffering from various health problems as a result of cancer, he's struggling to cope with the brutalities of jail life and can't get together enough money to afford his bail. He feels some of his South Side Crip associates, men he handed wads of cash to in his glory days, have just abandoned him. Keefe is now desperate to get out of jail, and his defense stems in leaning on his claim that he's completely made up his involvement in the Tupac murder for fame and money. He saw other people cashing in on the murder, so he thought he would too. He reckons his confessions to police were all lies. He made it up because he was under a plea deal and thought it would help him beat his other charges. And according to his lawyer, Carl Arnold, he wasn't even in Las Vegas on the night of the shooting. Arnold remains convinced he will see his client walk free, and their secret weapon could be former Death Row Records boss Suge Knight. Now, Suge did 10 toes down that he's not going to testify for nobody. As the only other person still alive from either car, Suge, currently in prison for a fatal hit and run, would be a key witness. Suge is the only person still alive who knows what went down. He saw the shooter. While he said he won't testify at the November trial, Suge has claimed in a TMZ interview from prison that Orlando was not the shooter, which again throws into doubt Keefe's versions of events. Keefe and his lawyer are hoping that they might be able to change his mind and persuade him to testify for the defense. And Suge holds the power to blow the prosecution case apart. And if Keefe D walks free, will there ever be justice for Pop? Listen, I think every dog has his day. I think, all cards eventually fall down, and it falls down when least suspected. Who would have thought that Diddy would be going through everything he's currently going through? Who would have thought, if everything people are saying and alleging about Diddy is true, this man is beyond a monster. It is insane. And I do think that, unfortunately, just in the world period, a lot of jealousy can happen, and then a lot of criminal activity happens. And do I think it could be possible that Diddy did put out this alleged hit? It's possible. But time will tell how this goes down. Time will tell once Keefe D goes to trial in November, and once he see that maybe this thing is not going in his favor, who knows what he will confess at that point. But the problem with the Keefe D confessions is he lies so much nobody knows the truth from what is not true. Anyway, guys, chat with me in the comments, and when I get an opportunity, I will chat back. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that every time I upload a video, you will be notified. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. Everybody, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this story. Do you think we will ever get justice for Tupac's unaliving, and how about Biggie's unaliving too? Do you think there will ever really truly be any justice? Chat with me, I'll chat back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.